Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, so get ready to get triggered. Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, as you might have heard in our intro. And with me, as usual, is my expert panel, Marshall, Adam, and Daniel. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Doing well.
Morning.
That's good to hear.
Let's get this bread.
Yeah, we're off to a great start so far. We've got a very important episode for you today. So we're obviously going to start off with our recap of the week. But before we do, as per Spirit Live rules and regulations, all opinions expressed on the show are not those of Ryerson or Ryerson faculty and are only those of the individual commentators. Viewer discretion is advised. So let's start with something that I think has got us all excited, the Brazilian elections. And remember, this recap is going to be short, but it's still going to be hectic. So, Brazilian elections, who wants to take it first?
I'll hand it over to Marshall.
Well, so Brazil just had a presidential election. Their election comes in two rounds. Jair Bolsonaro, who is the right-wing candidate, won in both rounds of the election. And it's significant because Brazil has been so kind of left-wing for so long. Ever since their military dictatorship ended, they've been a very left-wing country. And coincidentally, and I do mean coincidentally, I'm not saying that there is a correlation or at least a causal relationship, because there very well may not be, but Brazil has also descended into a lot of crime. It's become, they have some cities in Brazil that are reaching the top of the world in murder rates, and as well as corruption being rampant in Brazilian politics. Their last president is in jail. And
wasn't both of them they're getting prosecuted?
Yeah, and Jair Bolsonaro is the only candidate in that race who did not have any corruption charges.
Wow.
That shouldn't be an achievement.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And so he's a rather contentious figure as well. He's known for some statements that have been labeled misogynist, homophobic, all sorts of things like that. And he really just kind of flies in the face of those accusations. He doesn't walk back on them. He's really owned it. One thing that's really notable is how tough on crime he is. He, for example, one thing he said is, it was brought up while he was governor of Rio, and the problem was that the police had killed 20,000 criminals that year. And he said, 20,000, I wish they killed 200,000. And, that's the kind of guy he is. And I think that with a very Western, he's very pro-Western, he's very pro-U.S., as opposed to other Brazilian presidents who have been very anti-U.S. I think that we'll see Brazil go in a very interesting direction in the next little while.
Yeah, and I just wanted to know what you say, because people will say, we don't want a violent president. If he just wants to kill everybody, then it's going to be madness. So how do you respond? Because I've heard people say that.
Yeah, so in my opinion, Brazil is not doing well. Brazil is very sick. She's very sick. And I think that, while I don't agree with everything that Bolsonaro says, you need to take extreme measures when your country is doing so poorly, when it's becoming so dangerous. And he might be a bit extreme, but I think that when you've got a situation such as what Brazil is in, and what's been going on for the last 30, 40 years hasn't been working, then something needs to change, and it needs to change drastically and quickly.
Yeah, definitely on an international level, we can see the country being crippled by hosting the World Cup and by hosting Rio too, because that takes like so much money, like just to like create all these new stadiums and stuff like that. Like there's a city, I believe it's called Manaus, and it's like right in the middle of in the Amazon, like where the river's going and stuff like that. It's so completely secluded, but like they spent so much money like transporting like in small boats all of the materials they needed to construct the soccer stadiums and stuff. So you just like see like just a lack of proper government initiatives to like protect the country and to do what's best for the country's interests, you know?
Yeah. And we'll hopefully be taking a closer look at the Brazil elections, maybe in its own episode, because definitely something
that'd definitely be good.
We can expand on. But moving forward, let's talk about the Mexico caravan. I don't know if this is a bad thing, but the thing is, when I hear Mexican caravan, I just think of what you said about the minivan party.
Doug Ford's minivan.
So that's just what comes to mind. So do you want to take this and explain what this caravan situation is all about?
You know what?
Hopefully it's a Dodge.
You know, I get a lot of my news from places like Twitter, Facebook, online, and I really have been seeing very minimal information about this.
Yeah, they're not covering it. That's
they are not covering it at all. For the amount of people, I think it was... there was one department in America that estimated that there are 27,000 people in that caravan, like marching. For that size, there really should be more coverage. But I do know for a fact that all of this that they're doing is legal. Like the way that you claim asylum in the United States is you have to come through a port of entry and just be like, I am here claiming asylum. They have done exactly that.
Right.
Their claim to asylum is legal. Everything they're doing is legal. And it's from what it looks like with Trump's response deploying all those troops to the border.
That's why it's going to start getting coverage, though.
Yeah,
only because Trump actually
is deploying troops to the border, but they're not doing anything. They don't have enough time to do anything. This is midterm bait. It's a week till the midterm elections.
Exactly.
Wow.
Imagine the photo ops that you're going to see of thousands and thousands of soldiers at the border a week before one of the most, if not the most, contentious midterm elections in history.
Facts.
In states like Texas now, where it's Beto O'Rourke versus Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
And it's a legitimate race. It's not
That's
like...
actually really scary. Like,
Yeah.
Is this going to help or hinder him?
Help.
Oh, it's going to help. Beto,
Help. Big time.
Beto, right? Beto or
I think it's Beto.
Beto?
Yeah.
Shitty name.
Like Hispanic Roberto. It's
Roberto?
It's like
Roberto.
a short form of Roberto.
Yeah, one thing to that, Ted Cruz made fun of him for changing his name, but Ted Cruz's name is Rafael, so he can, like, be quiet.
Well, but Ted's middle name is Ted.
Yeah, but his first name is Rafael, so...
But
That sounds so much better, though.
Is Beto O'Rourke even Hispanic?
I don't know what he is.
Like
O'Rourke is an Irish name.
He's just
parents
like
of Irish
he's
names.
just like me, like racially ambiguous. Like
Yeah.
it's
Exotic.
exotic.
And
Yeah, and like now they're reporting that 30% of polling stations in Texas are switching the names between...
Yeah, I saw a couple of vids of people like poking the thing.
Yeah,
you just see it
between
going
Ted
to the
Cruz and
Democratic
Beto
candidate.
O'Rourke. It's creating... I don't know if you watched the most recent season of House of Cards, but the actual election day between Underwood and Conway... how
I've
they started
never
doing
watched House of
robocalls, how they started doing all this stuff, and how they...
It's kind of a blur to me because like I think I watched it too quickly.
Yeah.
But like plus
Anyway,
it wasn't that season wasn't that good.
He's trying to skew the midterm elections. It's looking good for the Democrats. Not great, but it's looking good, and he's doing last-ditch efforts.
Yeah. I was watching like a CNN video that was actually credible because it wasn't anyone from CNN specifically, but he was just talking about like what actually needs to happen like for like Democrats to like get a better like hold of like government. And it's just very crazy how like you saw like if you look at the map of like all the candidates that like won in the 2012 election, right? No, yeah, in the 2012.
The last midterms were, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like during Obama's last
Yeah,
election and
yeah.
Obama's last midterms that he was in under his
yeah.
power,
Yeah.
you just see like the
2014.
entire Midwest was just like coded in like a light blue, which means Democrats like won by like a slim margin.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the 2016,
And then Trump flipped
it's
it
a
all red.
total red wave, and it's like crazy.
Yeah, no, but now they're
They're
rebelling against him, like the
Yeah.
Rust Belt and all that area.
Yeah.
They've had enough of him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you can't keep all of those promises, like so it's like it's hard.
So Sam has a couple comments. He says their claim to asylum should be the first safe country, which is Mexico, because they actually come from
Central
Honduras.
America.
yeah.
Most of them are coming from Honduras,
Yeah.
Guatemala, Nicaragua. Yeah.
Sorry
for those extremely ethnic pronunciations.
Yeah, and so he says they're only coming to the U.S. because of social assistance. And then he says, no, Beto O'Rourke is not Hispanic. He's 0% Hispanic, which I believe Sam's right on that.
I'd believe that. O'Rourke is an Irish. What is Beto? I've never heard that name.
It's a Hispanic short form of Roberto.
Oh, really?
That's weird.
Yeah.
Never seen that one.
And I would wager that he's trying to kind of pander to the Hispanic population in Texas.
They're calling him the next Obama. So.
Yeah.
We don't know enough about him yet.
What does that even mean? The next Obama?
No, like the charisma, the sort of relatable to the young people.
I mean, he's a good speaker.
He's good looking. Yeah. He's... Oh, wow. Everything went silent when I said that. Okay.
Crickets, eh?
All right.
No judgment. No judgment.
My thoughts on the caravan are, they can go and claim asylum in the U.S., but again, the first safe country is Mexico.
Yeah.
And they're going to claim asylum and they're going to get rejected. And thankfully, the U.S., luckily for them, doesn't have the same kind of appeal policy that we have.
I'll have to disagree with what you're saying, though, because it's a joke to say that Mexico is actually a safe country right now. If anything, that's like the most...
Mexico's practically a failed state.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about it, because if you see like all of these like people that are seeking asylum, it's literally just a trickle down effect of all like las maras, like the gangs and the cartels, like all of that drug money that's being influenced into all of these like other states. So like if Honduras is fucked, if Nicaragua is fucked, and Guatemala is also fucked. Like Mexico's is barely better, like it's marginally better and stuff like that. So like that's realistically the only place that's actually safe would be the United States.
So immigration is definitely something that we'd probably also do an episode on and just tackle completely.
Always.
But moving on to our quickly last story of the week, which I added in just last night because it's important, at least to the Ryerson community, the UPass.
Ooh, the UPass.
That is, it's very polarizing, especially in this studio. I know, Adam, you're a big proponent for it.
I am a big proponent of the UPass.
I'm very against it. Marshall,
I voted for it.
You'd voted for it.
Did.
And
I voted against it.
Wow!
Yeah.
Look at this
I'm
dynamic.
happy
Normally,
you voted.
I would have voted yes, but like when I actually put some thought into it, I'm like, no.
Because my view is that you have to pay. It's just a money grab for the TTC, is all it is.
It is.
I'm not saving any money because.
Or don't you commute from Finch?
I do, but here's the thing. Right now, I use tickets.
Okay.
So they're about $2.05 each. I don't go to school every day in December, so that's a month's worth of the pass I won't use. So I'm saving about $45 using tickets as opposed to getting this pass.
Exactly.
So, it's different, potentially.
It would even be more convenient for you, like, once they ship out the tickets, just to use Presto.
Yeah, no,
right?
because, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm, like, against it. The biggest thing is the opt-out feature, and I know that you mentioned that there was not going to be an opt-out feature, otherwise they didn't want to go through it.
Here's the issue with that. So I was part of the RSU when the negotiations for UPass were happening. Every RSU meeting, we'd get an exec report. And the exec report would come from Daniel Liss. Daniel Liss is the VP Education. Easily, I'm very biased because I like him, and he's my friend.
Oh, he's a good guy.
Easily the mastermind behind the UPass. Like, he was on the U Commute team with U of T, OCAD, George Brown, and York, I believe. But he was very much the mastermind for me in his whatever. So the whole thing with the U-Commute survey was done. Around 17,000 people responded. Of the young people that responded, 41% admitted to omitting fare.
Omitting fare?
Yeah,
like,
to hop to not pay.
Yeah.
41% admitted to not paying. The TTC sees this as guaranteed fare from young people. Also, young people are tired of the TTC. They're willing to Uber. They're willing to bike. They're willing to walk. They're willing to
as you can remember, last
carpool.
week I had to taxi. $45 later, still.
It
was better than sitting on the TTC with 3 delays.
Like, young people are willing to take the L and go and use another method of transportation.
Yeah, I'd rent out a bike if I need to. Like,
so young people, on one hand, are avoiding the TTC, and when they get on the TTC, they're avoiding paying for the TTC. So
I didn't actually think about that, but that's actually very important, though. Like, it makes sense. Yeah.
So the TTC is like, let's get guaranteed money from young people. How are we going to do that? This way. But also, another thing, I'll be quick. Another thing is that the TTC was open to a more lenient opt-out feature if U of T voted yes. Because they're such a big population, they could have subsidized in a weird way the rest of
they
us.
could have all of U of T students would have been enough to enough to get
to
their
be
money
like,
back.
hey, you know what? Let's rethink this opt-out.
Yeah.
If
But didn't U of T opt out?
U of T voted overwhelmingly and against, but also 47% of U of T students live downtown.
Yeah.
And 20% of them live 1 kilometer away from the university.
Yeah. My thoughts on it, like from objectively, I don't think it's going to pass. To be honest, I hope it does, but at the end of the day, I'm also I don't care that much about it. Like looking at it from my perspective. I don't really care because...
And you use the TTC all the time.
I use the TTC, but it doesn't necessarily benefit me because my parents pay for my Metro Pass. And for them to save money would be nice, but it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
I voted yes because I felt that it would be a net benefit to the Ryerson community at large, especially when I saw these statistics about how many people use the TTC. And now,
sounds like BS, to be honest.
When it comes to the actual statistics, now do we know if the 80-something% number was accurate? Now I'm seeing that it might not have been.
How do you even calculate that?
Yeah.
Is it like one-time users, like people who use it?
No, it's like there was the U Commute survey, and then there was the My Move Toronto survey or something like that, and then there was the Ryerson School of Journalism did their own survey. Ryerson School of Journalism found that 48% of students use the TTC. UCommute found that 74% of students use the TTC.
Okay.
The My Move Toronto found that 80, what was it? Yeah, 80 something.
87 or something.
Yeah, 87% of students use the TTC. So depending on the sample size that you use, but the My Vote Toronto, or My Move Toronto, sorry. The My Move Toronto also did like a 2 days per week, 3 days per week, 4 days per week use. And what I think happened was that they clumped all of that together, and they were like, look how many people use the TTC. Doesn't matter.
That's
like
very
one big
misleading.
TTC.
That's skewed. That's really skewed.
I guess for me, like the reason why I did vote yes is because I don't think it'll be particularly helpful until a couple of years from now.
Yeah,
And
that's what I've been telling
Like,
people.
if they're
At
actually
that point, like
implement
if
all
we
that
can
transit
see
stuff.
more young university students moving to, let's say, like Young in Eglinton. I know it's not a very cheap area, so let's say like High Park or something.
Yeah, like Runnymede. Like
I think that would be a
Bloor
benefit
line.
to the students and to the school.
But like
if-
that's not beneficial because the Bloor lines always get so like fucked up.
Yeah.
It's all up in air.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I just think that seeing, because nobody wants to have to move right downtown. That's a terrible financial burden. But if more young university students move to like the High Park area or to like east of Jarvis or to, I guess like Young and Shepherd or something.
Yeah.
And
Also-
that allows
also
them
not
to
cheap.
save money on TTC. Like, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely polarizing. My number one concern is voter turnout. Number two concern is voting yes.
Yeah.
Because
That's true.
this is such a big amount of money, regardless
Yeah.
of what class you come from. This is $560 a year forever, basically.
Yeah.
And it's gonna increase with
Yeah,
inflation.
with
yeah.
inflation, and like,
And it's again.
and voter turnout never goes higher than 25% on this campus. That's ridiculous.
I'm optimistic that the voter turnout's gonna.
I'm not
be
going higher
higher.
than 30.
Just
I'm not
be-
going higher than 30.
I think it will be higher than whatever we had last with the by-elections and stuff.
Well, by-election was shit. It was like 10%.
Or the actual
but, like,
RSU. The last
RSU
year's
election last year was 19%.
Yeah. See, I'm
and
more
then
optimistic because like this directly affects Ryerson students.
19.5%. Yeah.
I just think to cap it off so we can move on to our main topic. If this were combined with Go and YRT and some other things, I'd understand if there was no opt-out feature. But because it's only TTC, then that's where my issue lies.
Metrolinx needs to see this through.
See, but that's total bullshit because like if you really think about it, like who actually Ryerson is known to be a commuter school.
Yeah.
I'm a commuter. I commute from Brampton. It takes at least an hour and a half. Like first from taking the public transit, I take to the GO station, and then GO station takes 50. It takes like about 50 minutes, right? Even longer if you're coming from like all the other way to the other side of Brampton.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing though, like they're even if with this like 13% discount that Go Transit offers, it's not enough.
Yeah.
Like one ticket costs like $9 and stuff like that. TTC's $3.
You know what it is also is that we don't have an extensive subway network. We don't have.
It's not good. It's not worth it.
That's why. That's the thing. If we had a subway system like Paris or London, that's another story.
Yeah.
You can get freaking anywhere there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and due to the extension with Vaughan, like that's another option I could take. I could take one bus to like Vaughan Metropolitan Center and stuff like that.
But
that's
so
gonna take me 2.5
Yeah.
hours
That's
to
so
get downtown.
long.
Like that's not viable for me
and
at
it's
all.
Like you look at in Japan, I believe they opened up an entire new line in the same amount of time that we opened up 6 frickin' stations. Okay, and how long is it taking to make this Eglinton Crosstown LRT?
105 years? I don't know.
Yeah,
Exactly. So the infrastructure's not there,
it's insane.
and that's a whole
Yeah, that's a
another
whole-
reason
yeah.
why.
No, I feel
Like
that.
Yeah.
I really don't get it because like it really makes sense. Like if we all care about the economy and we care about giving people jobs and stuff like that, why don't we just hire as many goddamn construction companies as quickly as possible just to get this shit done?
Because
Well, it's a
the
matter of
union-
traffic and also like congestion.
the union.
Because the union allows them to have one person working at a time and no more a lot of the time. So, which is why you walk past a construction site and you'll see a bunch of guys standing there
Yeah.
and one guy doing something.
Yeah.
And then he goes off and the next guy comes and works.
Yeah.
That's a union regulation. So, you know what? You know who to blame.
It just
Yeah.
it just
You don't
doesn't
see
make
that in Japan.
responsibility.
And true, they only work half a year because we have one season construction season and the other's winter.
Fuck
and
it,
that's
make them work during the winter and pay them more. That's
Yeah.
not that hard.
Well,
what?
I don't think it's possible to
Yeah,
work winter all
ground
the time.
machine broke during
Yeah.
the winter. Like,
I think, yeah.
It's a
Right,
mess.
there must be some sort of thing that like they can do like in the downtime. You
I'm
know,
sure there is, but we're not innovative.
Yeah, or
by
even
any
like,
means.
if it doesn't mean the construction of new like stations and stuff like that, at least the renovation of older stations. That could,
Yeah.
like that could actually work.
Good
well,
luck- good
honestly,
luck
I'd
with
rather
that.
just have new stations than old stations renovated because it's just the same shit new day.
I agree.
Honestly,
So-
all it is just like being to make a proper use and a proper efficiency of our tax dollars. That's all I'm
Yeah.
asking for. That's
I
all.
don't have a
But-
why do we renovate these stations? They're all fine. I've never been to a station and thought, you know what this really needs? A renovation. Like, never.
It needs a vegan restaurant like
Yeah,
built inside
in
of
the
it.
station.
Yeah, but definitely,
It's also elevators.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
Yeah, those-
that's fine.
A
Like,
lot
Well, I
of
mean,
a lot
we've
of
digressed-
a
we've
lot of
digressed for
stations
too
don't
long.
have elevators.
yeah, and bathrooms too. That's a whole nother issue.
That's a
You know,
whole other
yeah,
thing.
that would be great if they had bathrooms, but thank God for Eglinton Station that one night. Anyway,
Just piss on the track. There
um,
you go.
I don't want to hurt the mice there. Poor little mice. I see them running around all the time.
just
But
avoid
and-
the third rail.
but moving forward to a more somber subject, our main story, which is the Pittsburgh Synagogue Massacre. It's a very somber but important episode for the show. We've covered anti-Semitism on the Raben Report in our second season. But following the largest murder of Jews in American history, in which 11 synagogue goers were gunned down and 6 others, including police officers, were wounded this past Saturday on their way to pray, on Shabbat. It needed to be addressed once more. This will be an emotional episode, I'll tell you that right now. And if you're watching, you will definitely want to stay tuned. As always, before we start, remember that we are live on Facebook, so you can comment on our feed to have your thoughts read live on air. You good?
Yeah. Just don't want to break up the wires.
True. So, sorry, I'm already getting, winded. But before we get into the questions, seeing as we did cover the anti-Semitism in a previous episode, I want to just show everybody a couple of the best clips from the episode. We did have 2 great guests on the show, Aidan Fishman, who works for B'nai B'rith, Canada, and as well as Noah Schwartz, who's a professor at the RTA School of Media. And we're just going to show you a couple of the best clips. Stay tuned because after that we're going to go into our live discussion as well, but feel free to comment based on the video. So
I think anti-Semitism is definitely racism, and racism is a form of bigotry or hatred or any other type of exclusionary thinking. Why do people feel this way? Why are these sentiments prevalent in our society? Why has anti-Semitism existed in similar forms for the last 100 years?
If you want to look at history between, post-Holocaust till now, I don't think it's necessarily been, I guess, as open as it is now, and I don't think it's also different because we have a certain exposure that we didn't have in the past to hearing about events that relate to anti-Semitism. So.
Although it's terrible, I think that if these people are going to have these opinions, I think that these opinions should be out in the open to be critiqued and to be shut down. And I think it's so important because when they're hidden, they fester and they are not exposed to opposition. They're exposed to criticism. Exactly. Yeah. They manifest into something more dark and something more vile and something that can breed violence and aggression.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of whether anti-Semitism is getting worse, what I would say is that B'nai B'rith has noticed. We've been doing this audit since the mid-'80s. Around 2011, there was a noticeable uptick in anti-Semitic incidents in Canada from 2010 to 2011, and that is basically up until at least 2015, which is the last year where we have complete numbers. Those numbers have stayed consistent and not receded. So in relatively recent history, there was a noticeable increase that is remained steady. So that's not good.
And I don't think that we can go and call anti-Zionism anti-Semitic. I mean, we find anti-Semitism paired with anti-Zionism often, but I do related, think that they are related, but I do think that they're two separate things. However, I think anti-Zionism often comes to manifest itself as anti-Semitism.
So one of the major files I worked on, over the course of this 2016-2017 school year, is that we discovered that there is a professor of political science and what he calls liberal studies at the University of Lethbridge. His name is Anthony Hall, and he, for a very long time, for many years, was teaching first-year poli-sci students at the University of Lethbridge, who may not have known any better, that Israel was responsible for the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and that it was part of a conspiracy, by Israel and the Rothschilds and all the classical elements of the Jewish conspiracy theory to draw the United States and Canada into a war with the Muslim world for the benefits of the Jewish population.
Israel itself is not a bad place, but people equate, assumed issues and problems and problems they have with the military with Judaism.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And that's the demonism.
Yeah.
I think the simplest thing is people should just ask themselves before they're about to make some sort of comment about Jews or about Israel, ask yourself, if I substitute Jews for some other ethnic or religious group, or I substitute Israel for some other country in this sentence, does it make sense, or would I recognize that as a form of discrimination or prejudice?
Such a reasonable statement.
So that was a quick recap of what happened on our anti-Semitism episode with Aiden and Noah, and so it was...
That was a good episode.
It was.
I just wish I remember I had something good to say, but I don't really I wasn't well versed in that topic before though.
But even looking back at it now, that was season 2, so that was in just beginning of 2017, and a lot of still points that were said there are still very true that we're going to mention on this episode. But before I get into the questions, I don't even know how to react to this, because we've had 2 church shootings, and that's obviously awful as well.
The Quebec mosque.
Yeah, the Quebec mosque shooting. It's just when it hits so close to home, it's just that could have been any of us, at least me and Adam, and it's even sadder because one of the victims was from Toronto.
Yeah, my dad's coworker actually knew the family. So small world.
So you have one of the victims from Toronto, and you have one of the victims, the oldest. She was, I think, 92.
Holocaust
a
survivor.
Holocaust survivor. And somebody tweeted about it, and it's just I don't even know how to process it. She was a Holocaust survivor. She survived Nazi Germany, only to be murdered in synagogue on Shabbat in America Canadian? In 2018. That was the Holocaust survivor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, I struggled with thinking what to say on this episode. I usually script everything, but this is just, I'm probably rambling, but as you can tell, I'm just trying to get my thoughts together. I want people to know that this is serious. And you know what pisses me off the most is that all these people who are proponents of social justice and justice for all minorities, I didn't see one non-Jewish person post on Facebook or on Instagram about this. The only things I've seen are all my Jewish friends who update their cover photo, share these pictures of, and it pisses me off because you have everything else that happens, whether it's with the black community, the Muslim community, the, other minorities, and then of course the Jews, nobody gives a shit about. And that's what
I think,
that's my personal view, and that's what really upsets me. I'm just going to start the episode off like that. I try to stay neutral during the show, but this is something that, again, is very personal, and I'm going to
respectfully disagree with what you're saying. I just don't think you know why? It's because I don't think people truly see Jewish people as a minority group anymore. Because of the very few minority groups that had some sort of atrocity happen to them in the 20th century, they're one of the few people that actually recover. They're and they have some sort of reconciliation. They have some sort of
that's the thing, because
they have some sort of stability and stuff like that.
You know what I mean? We built nothing in the desert and created Israel, right? It was built out. I'm not going to go into the history, but I'm going to say that infrastructure was created after we've, tried to be killed and all the time, but we don't have this, victimhood mentality. At least I don't. The problem is that no matter how many hate crimes there are against Jewish people, I don't see any legitimate response,
Look, I know you're going to finish your point.
I just don't see the same type of discrimination, the same type of oppression of Jewish people in the same way that happens towards black people, towards Latinos, towards all of these people.
That's my point, because people don't realize it. Jews in Canada, the most hate crimes are towards Jews. Nobody, statistically speaking.
Right.
And this is... people don't realize
if you really look at it in the context, Jewish people have got it good though.
Well, I would take a different stance to both of you, because Jewish people are objectively the most targeted of any minority group, just empirically.
Right.
But now where I would disagree with Elliot is, or maybe not even disagree, but just ask the question is, what kind of response would you like to see?
Yeah,
because I think the response has been, from what I've seen, rather.
The Philadelphia community.
I'll be honest. I'll be honest.
Same thing.
I was going to ask this: how has the media coverage of this catastrophe been? So I'll start it off answering the question. I think the fact that it was covered on major networks is a huge thing, because generally when something happens to the Jewish community, I literally only see it in the Times of Israel and Stand With Us and Jewish organizations. So I'm really happy that there was actually action on, mainstream media. But generally the response that I would like to see is I would like to see more, people who advocate for justice, for minorities, posting on social media. Not that, not that posting on social media will fix the problem in a sense, but it'll definitely show support and solidarity, because that's what they're all for. That's what they're all for. They're always for solidarity with this minority, with that minority. And you know what people always say, well, you're just a white guy. Well, it's I'm Jewish, that's a minority, and I'm not trying to play this victim status, but it's always the same shit, and it bothers me.
See, the difference is I guess we would have to define it as different minorities and stuff. Like your type of minority is a cultural, ethnic minority, whereas everyone else.
No, but you look at Muslims, they're a religious minority as well.
Oh, there you go. A religious minority. There we go. I forgot to mention that as well.
They're both an ethnicity.
Okay.
They're both an ethnicity and a race.
Did I not say that?
But my point is that
you were going in between.
Oh, okay.
My point is what you mentioned. You have to look at them differently. That's what I'm trying to get at. Jews are always looked at differently as a minority, and that's what I dislike.
But they have it differently. They have it differently.
Every minority has it differently.
I would clearly
every
say,
minority has it differently.
I would definitely say that this minority is a victim of racial discrimination, a victim of oppression, and all of those buzzwords and stuff like that. But Jewish people do have some sort of privilege as well, that's lined in together in between it.
Look,
it's a very gray area, and I know it's hard to say that, but it's how do you properly define it?
It's also a tough pill to swallow. One, for me as a Jewish person, and two, as someone who is involved in world politics and global affairs. When you hear about a hate crime in a black community, it can be something as terrible as lynching, and it can be, gunned down on the streets by white people, by cops, and by other racist white communities.
Right.
But when a lot of the hate crimes that come towards Jewish families and Jewish people is also terrible, but it's like vandalism. Going online with terrible comments.
It's a different form of
with
discrimination.
terrible graphics.
Yeah.
It's not better. It's not better, but it's different.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree because you have people, for example, in France, that are walking down the street and they're stabbed to death.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're Jewish.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing happens to the black community in
that's
France.
my point. My point is that the same thing happens, but why is there not as much?
Because because in proportion to what happens to blacks and to what happens to Latinos, it doesn't happen in the same type of consistency and stuff like that. I really don't. I don't know.
I think it does. The problem is there's not as much coverage.
And you know what? I'll agree partially with that. I'll agree.
I can agree with that too. Yeah.
I have to agree with you when it comes to like, why do you only see it in the Times of Israel and Stand With Us?
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair. Every incident with other minorities you see on AJ Plus, you see on CBC, you see on Facebook, Vox, whatever, Vice. I think it should be addressed equally.
That's all I'm trying to say.
I think I misunderstood you a little bit, and I apologize. But it is important.
I have you being called out here.
Oh, me being called out.
Yeah. Sam asks, wait, are you saying that only whites commit hate crimes against blacks?
No. That's not what I'm saying. I was giving an example.
He was using an American context.
I was giving an example. That's not what I'm saying. There is black on black crime. There is Latino on black crime. There is whatever X on Y crime.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm trying to say. Don't take what I'm saying out of context.
I know. I figured that's what you meant.
But thank you for clarifying regardless. I think I misunderstood you a little bit, but I also think that, you as, not you, like us, as Jewish people, there is still so much sorrow from the Holocaust, from, I'm doing a lot of research now on anti-Semitism in Stalin's Soviet Russia, in Soviet Union. I think there is still so much sorrow and so much sadness and anger, and then, our judgment and our emotions get clouded a little bit when it comes to our own solidarity with these other issues. And I had to check myself when this happened, because I don't usually get affected by the news anymore, which is very sad. I haven't been genuinely sad,
It's sad that we
about
get
the effects of the news
Yeah.
since the Parliament Hill shooting.
Yeah.
The Parliament Hill
Like
shooting.
2015.
Yeah.
No, that was earlier than that, wasn't
That
it?
was
War Memorial.
2015.
That was
or 2014.
The War Memorial one, right?
Nathan
Yeah.
Cirillo?
Yeah.
I was in high school when that happened.
Yeah. I was in grade
Holy.
12.
Yeah.
That was 2014.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That was the last time I remember getting actually sad. I was sad about, the van attack. I was sad about the Paris shootings. I was sad.
What happened first, the Bataclan or the Pulse shooting?
Bataclan.
Bataclan.
Okay, then I think it was the Pulse shooting was the last time that the news really rocked me.
Did the Pulse shooting come after the Parliament Hill shooting or
Yes.
before?
Yes.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
Around the
first
same
That
time.
was
time,
when
though,
we were
right?
already in university.
Parliament Hill the Pulse shooting.
Yeah.
I retract my earlier statement. I thought the Pulse shooting came before the
Right.
Parliament Hill shooting. The Pulse shooting, I think, was the last time that I really got affected
So-
by the news. So when this happened, I got very sad, and I had to check myself. And I'm like, why didn't I get sad with the million Uyghur Muslims in China being interned and forced to eat pork and forced to integrate into Chinese
What?
society? Yeah, there's a million Uyghur Muslims in China.
That's
that
like
are
even
na-
different from Shia and what's the other
No,
one?
no, Uyghur's an ethnic group.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
Uyghurs
sorry,
are an
sorry.
ethnic
Sunni
group.
Muslims.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Cool. Now I know.
They're actually the closest ethnic group to Hungarians, I think.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so, which is interesting.
So they were forced.
They're
to eat pork
forced to
then?
eat pork and claim like loyalty to China because China has no state, authoritative religion.
Yeah.
Why didn't I get sad about that? Why didn't I get sad
Well-
about other things? And I think I had to check myself and sort of be like, okay, I'm invested in this.
Yeah.
I am a Jewish person, and I think that solidarity goes both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that I, as a Jewish person, should be more in solidarity with them, and not just because things hit close to home.
Yeah.
I can be more invested because things like hit close to home. But when it comes to solidarity should be a common ground.
For sure, and that's where, you know, I'll partly agree with you there, is that, you know, obviously you're going to be more, you know, more concerned with what?
Sorry, I'm
He
sorry.
saw you pass people.
And I just did this. I'm sorry.
Obviously you're going to be more concerned with things that hit close to home. You know, I that's just how it is.
That's how it is,
But the
for sure.
problem is, you can have solidarity with other groups, even if it doesn't affect you. My problem is that I don't see it vice versa.
Yeah.
I don't see much solidarity with the Jewish community other than
Yeah.
Jewish people,
Yeah.
because I've
And,
seen
you
Jewish
know,
people rally hardcore.
yeah.
There was a vigil at Mel
Lastman
Lastman Square,
yeah.
and you
But,
know,
I'm really sorry that your circle doesn't give you the solidarity you deserve.
and
but
it's
Yeah.
not even
like I'm genuinely sorry because that's just not fair.
it's not even like my personal friends. It's
No.
just,
I mean, your circle,
Yeah.
your social media, your view into. But what I've seen is like the Canadian Muslim Vote led a delegation to the Mel Lastman Square vigil. That's one form of solidarity. The Philadelphia community, the Muslim community, raised what was it, $700,000?
I think it was
Yeah.
and that was great, and I'm really happy to hear that.
And I'm talking about your circle. It is not fair that you, as a Jewish person, do not have the solidarity in your community from other members of your community.
And that's just that.
And-
But that's not atypical. That's not atypical.
It's not atypical, and it should be more typical.
For-
I'll give you that for sure.
And that's
But-
why I'm very heated about this,
Yeah.
because again, I'm not the type of guy to have a victim mentality like a lot of people, but I'm not gonna, you know, a lot of people have this victim mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
And-
appropriate that you're like,
And that's
like
the thing.
having that mentality like right now, and it's completely justified. So
And
I
I'm
totally
not,
get that.
Yeah.
you know, again, I'm not trying to say like, oh, you know, I'm a victim personally. It's like, well, people in my community have been massacred.
There's a massive
Yeah.
Jewish community
And-
here in Toronto. That
yeah.
easily could have happened here. Like, That's a
Exactly.
realistic
and
thing.
because
and
somebody
it has happened
and
here. There was
because-
a cemetery vandalized.
Oh yeah, just in France, like just recently.
No, here.
Oh, I know.
Not recently.
I didn't know about here, but I
It
know that in
was
France
around
recently.
the time that a lot of the cemeteries in the States were getting vandalized.
This is
And-
only like a year
Yeah.
ago, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
Yeah.
this was very easily just before our anti-Semitism episode, I think.
And
believe it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was because I think we mentioned it.
And I only saw it on Stand With Us.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's my point. You know,
Yeah.
again, but let's move on from
Yeah.
the view of Jewish people in the media. What I want to talk about, another thing that really pisses me off, is the politicization of this issue, whether it be from the left or the right. Why is this being politicized?
It's convenient.
Okay, fair, but one tweet.
I mean, he's not wrong. So
He's not. One tweet in particular was from a GQ editor, and that's what I really want to point out.
What did he say?
She basically said.
oh, she said.
saw this.
Yeah, you saw it, right?
Yeah.
It's basically, to paraphrase, she basically blamed this on the move of the Jewish embassy in Israel.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
You know, and obviously, who posted that? Stand With Us. And, you know, Stand With Us wrote, you know, like, so this is a merit to kill Jewish people? Like, this is, you know, a reason to?
Yeah.
And that's, again, the kind of shit that I'm...
No, and like when we were talking about the embassy move on our summer special, I was talking that it was, you know, it was going to spill blood, but I didn't mean it like this. I meant, you know, protests in Israel Palestine.
Yeah.
I didn't even think.
And if this were something that happened in Israel, then you know somebody writing about the move might be a bit more appropriate.
and if it
but-
happened right after the move,
Yeah.
then maybe. But even still,
And
I was
just-
against it. But it's still not right
Yeah.
to
Like,
gun down.
I just want to mention
Yeah,
briefly
go ahead.
going back to when we mentioned about the van attack, right?
Yeah.
Every van attack that happened in North America and Europe, you heard about. But this shit started in Israel, and you don't hear about that. This has been normalized in
Yeah,
Israel.
the car attacks.
Car attacks, right?
Yeah.
But again,
no, I
you
follow
only heard-
Israeli newspapers, and that's the
Yeah.
only place I see it.
And you
Unless it
only-
kills multiple people.
I don't even then I just
I'll
hear
see it on
you know,
like the rotating headlines
Yeah.
on CP24.
and that again, that I just wanted to mention that briefly. But Daniel, you wanted to go ahead.
I don't know, because like it's very hard, because like yes, this like terrible shit happens to Jewish people and stuff, but like there's it's very important that we have to be like I'm trying to find a way to be objective and critical, but with also being sympathetic of the Jewish state and of Jewish people and stuff like that. The problem is though, like maybe it was just one aspect of what I actually saw, but I was watching the documentary, or like at least a mini informative journalistic piece about the Jewish soccer team that's there and stuff that's happens, and that particular fan base, I hope it doesn't represent a majority.
Like, is it Beitar Jerusalem?
Yeah, exactly. Beitar Jerusalem.
I know them.
Yeah, exactly. Like I hope it doesn't actually represent most of the views of like
Beitar Jerusalem is a very.
It's an extremist soccer club.
It's an island of extremism in Israel.
Right.
So if you look at like the Maccabi,
and they got so mad because they had a couple Muslim players signed to the team, right?
Yeah, I'll let Marshall.
If
Marshall
you look
has
at
a
like
talk,
the soccer in Israel, like it really only seems to be a problem with Beitar Jerusalem.
Right. It really is.
I know the Maccabi team is the second biggest team there.
Yeah.
They don't have those kinds of problems.
But my point is, like, if all of these soccer fans are being so easy and being open about being racist and discriminating towards Muslims, like
no, but you have that.
It's just hard.
Hold on, Sam has a point, and I'm gonna ask him to clarify because I'm not sure what criticism he's referring to. So if you can hear me, Sam, just go ahead. But he says plenty of massacres that happen in non-Western countries don't get covered. I don't think that criticism is fair, and. You know, I would agree with Sam on that. When something happens in Israel and it doesn't get covered here, I understand that. I think when something happens in the U.S. and it doesn't get covered here, less so.
Israel is often classified as a Western country, though.
Yeah, for
as much as it's not geographically Western.
Yeah, for sure. I do think that we can't expect everything that happens.
Yeah, but like you hear
Israel
about market bombings in Afghanistan.
Yeah, which
they
I
happen
also
almost every day.
For sure.
Iraq almost every day.
And you hear about, and again, I feel for them, like the Yazidi girls who are being, raped and pillaged by ISIS, right? Right? And that's, again, I want to hear that here. But
it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. But since we're running out of time, we rushed
right.
through like
quick,
crazy.
Right?
Yeah. We mentioned quickly the politicization of the issue. You mentioned
I have a comment on that, and I don't think that politicizing tragedies is inherently wrong. I do think that you have to be tactful about it.
I think it's natural.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
I think we need to point fingers to justify. It's like, what did this? We don't like to admit that there's just evil in the world.
I think blaming it on Trump is
unfair.
Insane.
Yeah,
unfair.
Because, and literally it's like you have people like Ike Barinholtz is like, anybody who's a Trump supporter, this is on you. And it's like, so...
Look what he says right here. Trump has blood on his hands. That's what Lieberman says about the massacre.
And it's like...
Lieberman, like which Lieberman?
It just says Lieberman. Let me check again. I'll double confirm. Go ahead.
It's insane to me. Like, you can't point... The only finger that you can point at a single person is the killer. Okay,
I agree.
And I wrote down some notes. Like Marshall mentioned in our anti-Semitism episode about critiquing stuff that's put on Twitter. This guy was very vocal on Twitter, or not even on Twitter, on a special website that is for like very alt-right people who have been kicked off Twitter.
Breitbart?
No,
Gab.
No,
it was
not
Gab.
Breitbart.
Gab.
Yeah, that. So
Gab is down now.
Yeah, so he was very vocal on that, but he was very quiet.
Jonah Lieberman, by the way.
Oh, okay. I thought
Founder
it was
of
the defense minister of Israel. I would
if
have
not
been
now,
very surprised.
Yeah.
And it's getting worse. But again, we have about a minute and a half. So the last question I'm gonna ask is, I don't even know. It's just, is there more to come, and what can we do to stop this?
I think there is more to come.
Yep.
I think a lot of the rhetoric that has been taking place forever, but has gotten worse in the pre-Trump, post-Trump time period. Not blaming it on Trump.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Not
Just
blaming it. It's the rhetoric, the era. It's the era. It's the atmosphere. I
think Trump is more symptomatic of the era. Than the era
he's a product
Trump,
in a weird way. I think there is more to come. I think there's going to be a lot of, what did they call them? Imitation attacks? Like the people that are getting inspired. Copycat attacks. I think there will be, and I worry. I worry for...
And what can we do to stop this?
Yeah.
Shutting down Gab certainly isn't the answer, and I think that goes back to what I was saying before. You think
free
Gab
speech.
Gab is dedicated to a free speech network. It's not like a partisan network. It's dedicated to free speech.
And I know you're an absolutist in free speech.
Yeah, is shutting down Gab the answer? Absolutely not.
It'll just... Another gap will sprout up.
Exactly.
It doesn't do anything.
I just... My view is that we just need to be more... I guess aware, and this stuff needs to be broadcast and talked about more than just on these Times of Israel.
I mean, I'll say like a hot take right now. Like, I think it's important like
Got
we're
20
not going to
seconds.
prevent this, but as much as like I'm surprised that we haven't politicized the whole gun debate about it, but like, I just think it's a necessary evil to have somebody with some sort of armed security at these religious
I
places.
totally agree.
Like not
Yeah.
just
My
at
view.
synagogues,
There needs
at
to be
mosques,
there
at
needs to be
churches and stuff
huge
like
gun
that.
reform. We've
Yeah.
been knowing that
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
And I'm really surprised we haven't discussed that though. But if like the
If
whole
nothing-
idea, like
yeah.
the good guy with the gun thing, like
We-
what other
yeah.
answer is there gonna be? You know, like
We have got to go, but that was definitely an amazing episode. Thank you to everyone that tuned in this week and that commented on our feed. I'm just going to leave you with the pictures of those who we lost. But thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone.